gathering here this evening is kind of a real remembrance or a recollection or just a celebration of the meal that we heard of in the gospel about that Last Supper that Jesus had with his great friends. And so that meal recalls 3 meals in my life. So I'd like to kind of share a little bit about a meal that I had at a restaurant once at the hospital with my dad when he was sick, and then thirdly a potluck dinner. So okay, first this restaurant dinner. So this one time I'll never forget it. I went to dinner. It was with the bishop of the Catholic Church and all the people that were studying to be priests at the time. And we went to a restaurant. And guess who the waitress was my prom date from high school. And so that became very awkward. And so, as you can say, for a lot of reasons. And so I felt very awkward that she was the server and that here I was, I mean, all that other things aside, but just the fact that this woman that was my friend and my prom date and all this, she was waiting on us. It felt so funny to say, hey, will you run and get me a glass of water? Or hey, my meal isn't quite cooked the way that I wanted, or whatever people would say. It just felt so awkward to do that. Well, I don't know, I look at the gospel passage today, and I see Peter, I see the other disciples probably kind of wriggling in their seat and kind of saying, you will never wash my feet. That was one of the lines, you'll never wash my feet. I wonder if the thing was that if those people felt so awkward or so confused about this, someone giving them an act of service, someone doing such a witness of humility, such a witness of care. I'm going to care for you, even down to the bottom of your feet. I'm going to care for you. And I wonder if they just felt really maybe sheepish about accepting that love, accepting that service, accepting that humility from someone else. I don't know if you all are kind of like me, but I look at that meal that day in that restaurant and feel like sometimes that's not the only time I feel awkward about somebody else doing something for me. I even have a hard time asking, hey, could you hand me that pencil? I feel like I have a hard time with that. Because sometimes I feel like maybe I feel unworthy or maybe unsure about the fact that really, can someone love me? Can somebody really care for me? I mean, I'm so goofy. Could somebody really do that for me? Well, maybe they could. And here we have in this gospel passage the real challenge to that. Those apostles were called to open their hearts and say, yeah, I'm going to accept your love. I'm going to accept your care. I'm going to accept you being here with me in this special way and let you love me in this way. Maybe that's our call right now as we gather in this meal, to accept the love of Christ in our life, to accept the love of each other, to accept the love of people in our life, and that. And I think that's just this great thing, to open our hearts, to really know that no matter how goofy, no matter whatever we feel like about ourselves sometimes, to really be called to a little bit of just that vulnerability. I'm going to let my guard down just a little bit so that somebody can come into my life and I know that I am loved for who I am in this moment. Well, I also think about the meal that I shared with my dad at the end of his life. My dad, of just great, happy memory. He's been gone for about 13 years, and there was a period where he was in the hospital a lot. And there was this one night when he was in the hospital, and he was having a hard time he had a tremor, so he had a hard time getting the food into his mouth. And so I was feeding him. And here, I just can't even imagine what it must be like to be a dad and then have your son have to feed you like that. And so he was just great about it. He was great about it. Well, the food was terrible. the place was all the things that a hospital would expect. But we were present there with each other. And I kind of said that. I said, Dad, I'm not here for this fancy meal. I'm just here to be with you. And you've been there for me. I think about how much you were present for me when I went to play a tennis match, or when I was in a swim meet, or when I got a bad grade, you were still there trying to help me study, or whatever. All the times that you showed up for me, you were present for me. I want to be present for you in this kind of unusual moment here, in this meal time. Well, I look at Jesus there, and despite the fact that some of those apostles were getting ready to go betray him, one of them was going to go deny that they even knew him. The others were going to disperse to other places. Some were going to stick close. Who knows what the rest of them were going to do? But yet, no matter what all of them were doing, he was still present to them and saying, I'm present to you. I want to be with you. I want to acknowledge you. I want to unconditionally be with you. I want to give you my presence. Well, here we come together in a place like this. And there's a lot of talk about when we take the little bread and the little wine and we say, this is Christ's presence. There's a lot of discussion about that. What exactly does that mean? And what does that mean to me? What does it mean to you? Christ is really present. How do we talk about that? Well, I think we can look as simply as looking at this gospel passage and seeing Christ present to his friends, even though they were going to turn their back on him, and even though they didn't really understand what was going to happen and all the things that were going on, he was still there with them, present with them. I think about my dad and all the times he was present with me in my childhood and growing up. being able to give that presence back to my dad in the hospital room that night. Be able to say, like, I'm present with you, and I'm grateful to be here with you. That's what's happening, I think, here tonight. What's a mystery? It's a who knows what about Jesus being present tonight. But he is present. That's what our faith tells us. And this is a place where we can stop and celebrate that presence. He's present here. Christ is present when we're out in the car and maybe somebody cuts us off in the highway and we think we want to yell at them and stuff. Christ is present then. Christ is present at the workplace when we're excited about a thing that we finished or we're frustrated with something. Christ is present in our home, in our life. He's there all the time. But what a great time to come and celebrate that real presence that the Lord has in our life as we live it each day. Well, the third meal I'm kind of thinking about is this potluck dinner. Just recently, we attended a potluck, and so you think about for a potluck to be effective, somebody has to bring the food. so for the different kinds of food, so taking food requires kind of walking there or using your feet to kind of take you there. Well, it's interesting that the meal that we have in a potluck took feet for us to be able to have it. So feet are an important ingredient in this coming together like this. Well, it's interesting that in ancient times, apparently, that the person's feet were a symbol of sort of honor, or a way of gaining honor for a person. If you think about it, it was the feet that took people to go to work and accomplish things. It was feet that took people to go to the synagogue to worship. It was feet that took people to go to the market and be able to show up and be interacting with their friends. So the feet were like a symbol of honor, and that brought the person honor. So when you think about it, Jesus getting down on his knees and sort of blessing and cleaning and washing and being there with people's feet was a way of recognizing their honor. I honor you. I honor who you are. I honor all the things that you go, all the places you go, all the things that you do. I give honor to that. Well, here tonight, Christ is honoring us. He's honoring us. And we have a chance to honor one another in the washing of each other's feet. We invite everyone to do this literally in the celebration that we have in this ritual, but also we call each other to do it metaphorically. How do we honor one another? Do we honor each other by praying for one another? Do we honor each other by being there for each other when we're struggling? Do we honor each other by celebrating when there's joyful moments? How do we bring honor to one another? So here in this evening is a place where we are called to open our hearts to truly experience the real presence of Christ, his real love in our life as it's embodied in the people around us and the life that we live, in order that we can walk with him and walk out this door tonight so that we can bring honor to the rest of the world, knowing that we're filled with the presence of Christ and we want to acknowledge that presence in everyone around us.
Amen. Amen.